practices for implementation, evaluation, and dissemination, learning from open textbooks pilot program grantees. Just a couple of housekeeping notes. So all attendees are on mute just so we can hear all of the great information from our presenters. But you can use the chat to submit questions of the presenters, and you will be able to ask those questions after each of our 3 presentations today. So after they are done presenting, please feel free to put those questions in the chat and I will read those aloud for the presenters. Just a quick note, as I just mentioned, we are recording this webinar and I hope to distribute that to you all. But just a quick housekeeping note that we are recording your participation, appearance, and likeness, and we will distribute the recording, including your participation, appearance, and likeness to our department employees and external individuals who are interested in learning more about the great work that our open textbooks grantees do. And also just a quick disclaimer, the contents of these presentations were developed under the Open Textbooks Pilot Program grant from the Department of Education. However, the contents do not necessarily represent the policy of the Department of Education and should not assume endorsement by the federal government. So just a quick overview of what we'll be discussing today. I don't want to take up too much of their time because they have some really exciting information to share. But we'll have a quick about 10-minute panel just to kind of set the stage, which is a brief overview of what open educational resources and textbooks are. So we'll hear from all 3 of our presenters, just kind of set the stage and the foundation for that information. And then they'll go into their individual projects. So you'll get to learn a little bit about what they're doing at their institutions. We'll first have Kimberly from Chippewa Valley Technical College, who is an FY 2019 grantee, Kelsey Smith from West Hills Community College, who is an FY 2020 grantee, and Ariel from Arizona State University, who is an FY 2019 Open Textbooks grantee. And just some of the things that you all will be learning about today. So again, you'll be learning about what open educational resources are. You'll be able to understand the process for how our grantees have developed and implemented OER in the context of their grant. Just some lessons learned from their implementation and evaluation of their OER products, and then promising practices for sharing and disseminating information about their grant work. So some really exciting stuff, and I'm very excited to get started, but I did want to just share our grantees and give you an idea of who they are. So these are our wonderful 3 presenters. Again, Kimberly from Chippewa Valley Technical College, who is the Open Resources for Nursing Grant Project Director. We have Kelsey Smith, who is the Project Director from West Hills Community College and an Open Educational Resources Librarian. And we have Ariel Ambar, who is from Arizona State University as the Project Director over there, as well as a President's Professor, a Distinguished Global Future Scientist, and a Howard Hughes Medical Institute Professor. So with that, again, I don't want to take up too much of their time because they have some really exciting information. I am going to turn it over to our 3 presenters.
Great, thank you, Corinne. I'll start here with the first slide where we talk just more about what OER is. Let's get this going here. There we go. So OER, for those of you that aren't aware of what open educational resources are, they technically have Creative Commons licensing, which includes the 5 R's, which means anyone can retain them, reuse them, revise them, remix them, or redistribute them without asking for permission. You just include an attribution statement for where the source came from. So the developers still get credit for their intellectual work, but you're free to use that at no cost, and students as well, obviously. So why the emphasis on OER? So if you look at the cost of textbooks since 1980 compared to the Consumer Price Index, which is the yellow line at the bottom, and the textbook cost is the kind of magenta line at the top, you can see how the cost of textbooks have significantly risen since 1980, almost 1,000%. And that's just such a burden for students who are trying to cover other costs related to rent and food and transportation, and a significant barrier for many students, especially those that are vulnerable. One nice thing to see here is since about 2015, you can see the disruption that's occurred in textbook prices as a result of the OER movement, and helped stop that significant increase. So when we talk about the impact of textbook costs, how does it impact students? Because it's more than just cost savings. It affects their chance at student success. So here's some survey results from Florida Virtual Campus Survey in 2022. You can see that over 50% of students did not purchase the required textbook. Those of you that are faculty may have anecdotal stories you've heard from students where they use old editions, they share editions with, other students, or they just go without. And you can imagine the impact that has on their success, as well as impacting the institution, such as taking fewer courses, not registering for a course, and then ultimately on their lives, earning a poor grade or dropping a course, not successfully passing it. So those are the what's and the whys of OER, and I'll open it up to the other panel members to talk more about OER from their perspective.
I can chime in too. As a librarian, we often see a lot of students come in that can't afford the textbooks, and the libraries often have course reserve. So we might put a textbook copy from a course and they can check it out for 2 hours and it has to stay in the library. And we often see students taking pictures of their chapters and trying to read it on the phone. So the high textbook cost is really a barrier, like Kim said, for our students. They're trying to find workarounds, and the workarounds don't work that well.
Yeah, so I'll just add, and I'll come back to this in my presentation, which is the last of the three, is that one of the reasons those textbook costs have gone up is because a textbook is no longer what a textbook used to be, right? There's all sorts of technological components associated with it now, simulations, adaptive platforms that are cloud-based, things that are proprietary and as a result fairly expensive. So one of the challenges is to figure out how do we bring more of that sort of technology infrastructure into the OER world, right? How do we bring it into a scenario where it can be meet those 5 R's as much as possible at as low a cost as practical. So that's a large part of the focus of our project, which we'll be talking about a bit.
Thank you all so much. That was a really helpful overview, kind of setting the stage and foundation for why this work is so important. And a huge shout out to Kim for these wonderful slides to kind of set that stage and why this program is just so important for our students to reduce that cost and prepare them for in-demand fields. So I'm going to turn it over then to Kim for our first presentation.
Thank you, Corinne. So I lead the Open Resources for Nursing project, also referred to as OpenRN for short. We received a $2.5 million grant back in 2019. As I'm talking, feel free to go to our website, cvtc.edu/OpenRN, for more information about each textbook, as well as the virtual simulation and virtual reality scenarios. And as I talk through the project, I'm going to insert little nuggets of lessons that we learned as we went. So that's one of the very first lessons that we learned. As soon as we received the grant, we opened a web page that had all this type of material out there that we could refer people to as we did presentations, taught faculty, and talked with administrators. So definitely start a web page as soon as you can when you start your project. This is actually a PDF or a image of a PDF poster that we created at the beginning of the project. So another nugget would be to create a infographic type poster right away. You'll be asked to present at multiple conferences and just information sharing sessions. And it's nice to have that standard poster that you can use as talking points. And then we modified this poster every year as we went, as more deliverables were created and student outcomes change. So to tell you more about the project, we started with 5 OER textbooks, where was our deliverable, 25 virtual simulations and virtual reality plans. We're up to 9 books now with the additional funding that we've received as we continue to grow here. You can see the different books here. The first 5 were all completely published last year in 2022. And this is a consortium project, so it's across the 16 colleges with the technical colleges in Wisconsin. We have members contributing from every technical college, as well as industry members from our advisory board. So over 65 contributors have helped develop these textbooks. And we just managed to hit the scene as OER was exploding and this need for nursing resources grew. We received a tremendous amount of national interest, and so far we've had over 300 national reviewers also participate in a peer review process as we published each of these books. And that's another little nugget I'd like to share as a lesson learned is collaboration truly is key. It takes a village to create each textbook, and the more reviewers you have, the better quality you achieve just because of those diverse perspectives that everyone brings to the table. So at this point, over 60 colleges have officially adopted the print versions of the OpenRN textbooks. Now, the online textbooks are completely free, as we mentioned, as part of OER. Those are published on a platform called Pressbooks. If you're thinking about developing OER, Pressbooks is well known in the field as a platform that faculty can easily use to upload their content, add images, add those learning activities like Ariel mentioned earlier. We use a software called H5P, which is also a free software. So start thinking about what platforms you might use to reach your goals. It's also been a nice option to collaborate with a publisher called Xanadu, who was associated with OpenStax, one of the very initial OER publishers. And they developed affordable print versions. In the literature, it's set up to 65% of students prefer a textbook that's printed. We've found about 10% actually purchase a textbook if they want that hard copy to leaf through and highlight and do all the things you do with a traditional textbook. And the other nice thing about having that is we can track the usage, and I can provide this data as to how many colleges have adopted it. It's a little bit harder to track the online usage. Up in the right corner here, you see there's over 3 million international users, or at least people looking at the online textbooks. I'll share more data about that in a second. That online usage is a little bit harder to track, but we can show you what we're able to track in Google Analytics. Another thing I wanted to mention down here was the 250 faculty and administrators that have been trained. So at the beginning of the grant, we started a course we refer to as OER 101. It's basically student success with affordable resources. And we use that to help faculty and administrators learn about what OER is, how they can create it, how they can adapt it, how they can use H5P and other platforms. It was really helpful as we developed each textbook to have those faculty members interested in authoring to take that course and just be aware of all the different implications of Creative Commons licensing that went along with it. So when I mentioned the 60 colleges, here is the list that we're able to provide because of that association we have with the print publisher. You can see a variety of institutions across US and Canada, including the technical colleges and within Wisconsin. And that's because nursing is just such a broad field. The content applies really to any program. So we're able to track the data specifically within Wisconsin in terms of how many students are enrolled in OER sections, their success rates, how many successfully pass with the A, B, or C, how many complete the course, which would also include the grades of a withdrawal or a D or an F, and then the cost savings as a result. So that's another nugget I'd like to add as a lesson learned is right away, if you, during the application process, even think about how are you going to track this data. We were lucky enough within Wisconsin because of the 16 technical colleges being part of a consortium, even though they're all standalone, separately accredited institutions, we have a state system to gather this data. So it was relatively easy after every academic year to pull this data from the state system and then do our analysis. And that's so important in the reporting then that we provide back to the Department of Education. So in the first year, I want to show some really exciting results we had with our very first textbook that we published, which was the pharmacology book. As you know, that was happening just as COVID hit, so there were a lot of confounding variables going on, but we were able to compare the sections within Wisconsin using this book to those that were not. And you can see in the very top line here, the blue is the benchmark across all WTCS colleges for this course, what the traditional success rate was, which was about 75%. Not that great. It was one of those entry-level nursing courses that were it's very difficult. Once we implemented the OER within these OER sections, which not only has the free resources, but as we've talked about, has those learning activities that help students apply the content they're learning right away in active type learning strategies. The curriculum is totally aligned with the course competencies. All those things, every student having access to the book day one of class without having to worry about purchasing it or paying for inclusive access, all those things, we believe contributed to this 5% higher success rate in the OER section. So another lesson learned to share is think about how you'll, what courses you might be able to target that show immediate results and really get the momentum going for your project. Earlier, I mentioned it's a little bit harder to track the online adoptions, but what we can track is the usage. So this is Google Analytics. You can see over here that over 4 million users have accessed the books. You can see how many sessions. You can see almost 10 million page views in there. And the average duration is about 2 minutes per page, which makes sense because we are very vigilant in chunking the information in our textbooks so that each page is relatively easy for students to navigate through and around and get exactly to the information they're interested in. Just as a side note, some exciting things we saw too was because it's an online book, users outside of the United States are using this information. We actually applied to the OE for a Better World project that was sponsored by UNESCO, part of the United Nations, which helped to get the word out, I believe. But you can see the top 5 countries here in their usage of the OpenRN textbooks. Another lesson learned is a survey. We put a survey together right away, year one. We included in the preface section of every textbook so that users can complete this. We also provide it to the faculty within Wisconsin who have adopted the textbook, so we can get that feedback from faculty and from students in terms of how do they compare the OER textbooks to the traditional commercial textbooks. And you can see in terms of quality, ease of use, helpfulness of learning activities, evidence-based practices, which is so important in nursing, navigating to other valid sources. We really try to teach students that digital literacy in terms of what are credible sources where you can go to after you graduate and continue to get information. And then helping them achieve those higher levels of learning and applying the content to patient care. So those are the questions we ask, and over 92% of respondents in all of these criteria rate the OpenRN textbooks the same, which is the middle section here, better or much better. So it's really great to see all that data near the bottom. I also wanted to mention something that we've really started exploring in about the past year, since about November, is generative AI. And I just wanted to mention that because it's really hitting the educational world by storm. We're not using it to create textbooks, but we are using it to help subject matter experts create those case studies that we like to include in every chapter of the book to help students apply the content to real world scenarios. So we use ChatGPT to help generate the information behind the case studies, the rationale for the correct answers and the incorrect answers, and then that information is fully reviewed and edited by a subject matter expert. It's really a thought partner in terms of saving faculty time. It also adds more diversity to the case studies because every faculty member is limited by the experience that we've had in patient care, and this just adds even more diversity. We use generative images and voice and video to give even more engagement for students, so they can see the patients and hear them talk as if they were interacting with actual patients. So this slide doesn't want to show. Here we go. So here are some examples of these people don't exist. These are generated patients and nurses that we include within our virtual simulations just to achieve that diversity in population that we want to achieve. And students interact with these patients within the H5P branching scenarios is what we use for the learning activity. So just in summary, lessons learned. Collaboration truly is key. You need a village to create the books and the associated learning activities, the virtual simulations that go along with it. One thing I wanted to quickly mention was this model of information search process. We found this at the very beginning of the project, and we've discovered it really plays through in terms of helping faculty learn how to develop OER, in terms of feelings, thoughts, and actions as they learn this development process. So I just wanted to share that with others who may be starting this process. It's not unusual for faculty to feel kind of uncertain, maybe vague. They're exploring what OER is and how they can use it. They get optimistic about it. And then when they start writing, they may feel a little confusion, some frustration or doubt. Can I really do this? But with continued assistance and support by those OER experts that you have within your institution, they develop a feeling of clarity, a sense of direction and confidence. And once they see what the team is able to create, they reach this feeling of satisfaction. So keep that in mind when you're working with people that are new to the OER process. And don't be surprised if your workflow evolves. I know ours did as we figured out what worked best within the institution and across institutions. For example, we use Google Docs to help with the collaboration across different institutions, just because it was a great way to collaborate without hitting any of those firewalls that tend to happen. One last thing is sustainability. I mentioned a little bit earlier when I talked about the print versions. What our print publisher does is donate $5 for every print version sold into a specially earmarked sustainability fund at CVTC, so that once the grant funding ends, we'll be able to use that sustainability fund to continue to maintain and update the textbooks, so that this is a long-term process, not just a once and done, one and done. So thank you for your time, and I'll hand it off to Kelsey, I believe is next.
Thank you, Kim. Let me get my slides up here. Okay. Can people give me a thumbs up if you can see the full screen slides? I can't even see thumbs up, but I assume you all can see my slides, otherwise tell me something. All right. So my name is Kelsey Smith. I am an OER librarian at West Hills College in Lemoore. Lemoore is a tiny little farm town in the middle of California. I'm also the project director for one of the open textbook pilot grant projects called CC Echo. We had to use an acronym because it's a mouthful. CC Echo stands for California Consortium for Equitable Change at Hispanic Serving Institutions with OER. Okay, so what is CC Echo? What are we doing? We are a consortium of 4 community colleges here in California. It is West Hills, we're the fiscal lead. We're also partnered with Allen Hancock College, which is on the Central Coast, College of the Canyons, which is in Southern California, and College of Marin, which is in Northern California. So we're all kind of spread out in California. We're a wide representation of the different student populations, and we are all HSIs, Hispanic Serving Institutions. So our project goals are, number 1, and our most important, is to create 20 peer-reviewed OER projects for courses that are high enrolled or high impact. And these must have limited or no OER available. We didn't want to duplicate things that were already out there. Our second goal is to promote textbook affordability, student success, diversity, equity, inclusion. And we wanted to benefit all students all over, but particularly the HSIs in California and our underserved students here. Our third goal is to provide professional development for integrating diversity, equity, inclusion, or its acronym DEI, into OER and curriculum in order to create culturally relevant OER. That's one of the beauties. Kim mentioned OER is openly licensed, so it can be remixed and edited and adapted. So we use that benefit to really adapt it to be more relevant to our student populations. And our Fourth goal is to share everything we're doing. So sharing all of our processes, procedures, training materials, and of course, all of the OER. We are really targeting HSIs with our dissemination efforts. And we are a fiscal year 2020 grantee, so we're in the last year of our grant. We are doing all of our data collection and everything at the end of this year, and then we'll be reporting on that data next year. We do have a website listed at the bottom of the slide. It's hancockcollege.edu/ccecho, and we will be posting all of our finished projects on this website. Okay, so behind the scenes of ccecho, our processes and procedures. So before funding any OER project, whether it's a textbook or a course or ancillary, we did OER gap analysis. We did a couple of these. And what that involved was looking at the top third highest enrolled courses at all 4 of our colleges, and then looking at and seeing which ones are using OER and which ones still weren't, and seeing where the overlaps were. If we noticed that 2, 3, 4 of our colleges were all missing OER or not using OER in a certain high enrolled course, then we reached out to faculty to see if there was any interest in creating or authoring a textbook. We did this to make sure we weren't overlapping things that were already out there or projects that had already started elsewhere in California or the rest of the country. We used a diversity, equity, and inclusion framework. And we also, just as ccecho, really centered the DEI aspect of this grant through not only the OER content, but also including students in content creation, as well as BIPOC and adjunct voices, since they are often left out or their voices are a little bit quieter, especially in academia. We had a lovely group of OER specialists at College of the Canyons to help our faculty authors out as needed. This group are trained past and current students at College of the Canyons, and they help faculty find OER and format for accessibility and all sorts of cool stuff. So we were lucky to have them help as needed. All of our OER, except for 2, were peer reviewed with a standardized rubric, and this rubric has elements of diversity, equity, and inclusion in there. So they're being reviewed with this criteria. And we're sharing all of our OER projects in various file formats and on multiple platforms. One, in the spirit of openness, I guess you would say, is not all files are as easily edited as others. So if anyone's tried to edit a PDF, they know how horrible that can be sometimes, and not everyone has access to Adobe and some of the software needed to edit different file formats. So we're sharing OER all over that we can, and we are also working with the RP group, which is our external evaluators, which I'm going to talk about on our next slide here. So the RP group is a research and planning professional development group that the California community colleges use often. We're collecting both qualitative and quantitative data to look at our different performance measures. So our qualitative data includes author interviews. So we are looking at our faculty authors and asking them about their successes and their challenges, and what worked for them, what support they need now, and what they could have used. We actually use this information, this data, to create an author guidebook to help our future authors with OER creation. And then we're also doing student surveys. This includes our OER specialists that are helping our faculty and the students that are enrolled in the courses using grant-funded OER textbooks. And we're asking them things about, like, how do they access the OER? Do they have their own personal computer and reliable internet? What they think about the OER? Do they have any feedback for the author? And then our quantitative data is being collected now. So we don't have anything to report out just yet, but we will be looking at academic success metrics, cost savings, the number of courses and sections we've offered. And then we will be specifically looking at disproportionately impacted student population, different ethnic groups, Pell Grants, first-generation students, things like that. So we were ambitious. 20 OER projects was a lot to shoot for, and we were a little discouraged in our first year of the grant because we had 5 faculty interested. And so thankfully, as the pandemic kind of slowed down and people were able to focus on other things, we got more interest in creating OER. So we are going above our 20 OER goal. We've got 20 OER projects, and on this slide here, the ones with the check marks are completed. The ones with the regular bullets are underway or almost done. So we have 12 projects left to go. Thankfully, almost all of these are in the peer review stage, or they're just doing some last minute accessibility formatting. And then we will disseminate these. We will get them onto our website and other platforms. We also have 2 training or professional development courses. We have one for training other OER specialists. So if you have students or support staff on your campus that would like to help faculty use or adopt, edit OER, this is a great course it's a self-paced course they can go through. We also have another course called Using OER and Open Pedagogy for Equity, and we did a little pilot of this, a facilitated version, for a small group of our own faculty this summer, and it went very well. So these 2 courses are available on Canvas Commons. And then let's see. So I want to highlight out of that big list of projects, just 3 of them because of their how they really center diversity, equity, and inclusion. This first one is one we're very excited about, and this is an Open Stacks American Government 3rd edition audiobook. So those of you that are familiar with OER may have heard of OpenStax before. They're a large OER publisher. All of their textbooks are free. And I had a professor reach out to me, Brian Barrick at LA Harbor College, who had an audiobook project in mind. And he did this narration with a graduate of LA Harbor College, a student named Sarah Aria. And they both created this OER textbook from an existing OER. And it's been a huge hit. It's important for our students at Hispanic serving institutions. If you think about how many of the students here are English language learners, some of them may be able to listen to English and comprehend better than read, or they may want to read and listen at the same time. We also have a lot of full-time students that are working full-time who are commuting a lot. They can listen to their class textbook while commuting. And then also, it's been a very helpful resource for students with disabilities that are using screen readers. If any of you have used a screen reader, you know that it sounds very robotic, and sometimes it's hard to comprehend and absorb. And so having a real human voice has really helped our students with disabilities. So the metrics for this project at the end of last month, it had over 25,000 downloads and streams, over 30,000 views on YouTube, and over 10,000 hours streamed on YouTube. So all of the 3 projects I'll be highlighting today, there's a QR code if you want to scan with your phone, but when they release these slides after we're done, you can also click on that and it'll take you right to the resource. On the slide, I have some listener feedback. The one on the left mentioned this is a student that works over 12 hours and they get to go home and they can listen to it at work and then go home and read. So it's like getting information in 2 different formats. And then the listener on the right is a student with a disability and mentioned how they hate the text-to-speech software because of the way it sounds, and that this resource was very helpful. So, like I mentioned before, we not only focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion in the OER content itself, but also in the way that we worked. So this project and a couple of other ones actually include students right in them. So we have an actual literal student voice in this one. We had a full-time faculty member working with a student, and English was not the student's first language. So she gained speaking confidence, and then because of her partnership with this instructor, it opened doors for her at CSU Long Beach, where she is now. She was able to gain valuable work experience and connections at her university. I also have this comment from one of Brian's students from over the summer. I won't read the whole thing, but it was another disabled student with dyslexia that works full time. And they mentioned how inclusive the course was, and the audiobook allowed them to um, study at work and then come home and actually just be able to take care of themselves. So we love hearing things like that from our students. The second textbook I wanted to highlight was our ethnic studies textbook, and this was a big deal in California. We have a new graduation requirement in the CSUs and the CCCs that all students must take an ethnic studies course to graduate. And at the time, at 2020, when we applied for this grant, there was no OER for ethnic studies. So we jumped on it and got our faculty to create this. And both of the authors here are from West Hills College Lemoore. One is full-time, one is adjunct. They are both women of color. We also feature biographical kind of short essays, life stories from Black, Indigenous people of color. They include adjunct faculty, and they were all compensated for their contributions. Weren't going to them to get some free work out of them. We really wanted to include their life stories in this. And what that does is help students see themselves and their own lives in the textbook they're reading, and they could be more engaged when they see, this person looks like me, this person has a name like mine, or I experienced something similar to what was being said. Also exciting, we are translating this textbook into Spanish, and that should be available at the end of 2023. And we really do hope in the OER community that both Spanish translations or any language and audiobook translations gain popularity, because these different formats really do help our students. And the last project I wanted to highlight is a microbiology lab manual by Dr. Fox at College of Marin. And the description of this one is it's an OER lab manual for undergraduate microbiome classrooms. This manual lays a traditional foundation of scientific inquiry while promoting equity in science. So this one is at this point available just on Canvas, but there is a link to download in Microsoft Documents or Word documents. And then hopefully we will be able to get this onto LibreText, which is a big OER repository. For those of you that don't have Canvas, so more people can access it. And if you can see the screenshots, I've highlighted what Dr. Fox did was in almost every chapter or module of this manual, there's a scientist spotlight, and she spotlights women, people of color, and anyone who's often left out of the traditional STEM textbooks that are often crediting mostly white males for discoveries in science. There is a screenshot here of the inventor of agar, which is used in petri dishes. Unfortunately, her husband took the credit for this invention. So Dr. Fox did a great job of including voices that are left out and information that's often left out. Again, this helps students see themselves in the material. And our lessons learned were very similar to Kim's. So some backstory, we're a fiscal year 2020 grantee, which meant we wrote our application for the grant at the end of 2020. So it's 4 colleges, all of our business offices and grants offices, and we're all working from home, trying to organize everything on a shared document, and it was tough. We were also very ambitious. We thought, hey, the pandemic and this lockdown is going to be over in a couple months. We'll be able to travel and do a lot of professional development, all this stuff. It didn't happen that way. So like Kim was saying, flexibility is very much necessary. be flexible with your goals, your plans. Setbacks happen. Also with multi-year grants, you're very likely to have change in project leadership, turnover. That happened with us. And so we definitely had to change things as we went, but we were flexible. Another thing that we learned was project management software or a system for tracking progress, especially if you have 20 or more OER projects going all on at the same time. It was really helpful to have some sort of system in place. And then since we were working with faculty who were authoring OER, meeting faculty where they were at was incredibly important. And I think we underestimated how much support they would have needed. Not all of them, some of them were ready to go. They didn't want any help from, any support. They just pumped out a textbook, but others have less experience with both authoring content and open educational resources. So we did create that author guidebook to help them out, and then sometimes our support even needed more support in order to be more supportive. So those were our main lessons learned from this project. And then when they share out these slides, all of these links will be available to you. We have some case studies that were published for us that highlight a couple of our projects. Our diversity, equity, and inclusion framework that we used is linked here, as well as the peer review rubric. Our author guidebook is here, so if you have any faculty or anybody that's interested in starting an OER project, that's a good thing for them to look through. And then again, our website is hancockcollege.edu/ccecho. And then contact information if you have any questions.
Thank you so much, Kelsey. And yes, we will distribute all of these wonderful materials and slides. We did just have a couple questions, if you don't mind.
Sure.
What was the project management software you used?
Oh, it wasn't software, unfortunately. It was really just Google Sheets. But if that's one of the things, if I could do over, I would probably use some sort of software. Or I heard another OTP grantee talk at another presentation, and she mentioned setting aside some funding for an assistant. So the project director had an assistant that just kept track of all the projects going on and the reporting that is due to the Department of Ed. And if I could do that over, I would definitely have an assistant.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Kelsey. We have one more question, but that's for all grantees, so I will ask that at the end. But thank you so much, Kelsey and Kim. We will now turn it over to Ariel.
All right, so hopefully you can see me. Let me get this slide set up correctly here, I hope. Can you see my slides? Give me a thumbs up or somebody say something.
Yes, perfect.
Great. So I'm happy to talk to you about the InSpark OER project led by ASU, collaborative with a number of other institutions to help get this going. And so first of all, what is InSpark? InSpark is a courseware distribution network that ASU got going a number of years ago in collaboration with a startup company at the time called Smart Sparrow, based on proprietary technology. And that courseware was rich, interactive, adaptive, lots of formative feedback, simulations, virtual field trips, things like that. And so we were pretty successful in developing a rich body of courseware that was distributed, in that startup proprietary for-profit mode. So what is InSpark OER? So we wanted to figure out how we can bring as much of that really great active learning based on using formative feedback and simulations and virtual environments to the OER world. How can we bring this rich technology to the open OER world? So what InSpark OER is it's a project that develops digital OER to enable active learning. I'll mention in a minute, fostering essential workplace skills. That makes us a little bit different than some other projects. Of course, aimed at improving student outcomes and lowering textbook costs to save students money. And it's specifically a collaboration between the InSpark Science Network, which is that courseware distribution organization, and the Center for Education Through Exploration, both now at Arizona State University. And we worked with Ivy Tech Community College, Maricopa Community Colleges, and Miami-Dade College in getting this going. So as I mentioned at the outset, the motivation here, right, is that textbooks are no longer just text, right? They're text plus video, plus assessments, plus rich simulations, plus all sorts of interactives. And then in addition, increasingly adaptive feedback of various sorts, formative feedback, embedded questions that students can ask that gives you feedback, gives students hints, and even adaptive pathways based on how they answer. You go down different pathways to help address things that students need to learn. That body of material is what is increasingly in textbooks that are sold by publishers. That's part of the reason that costs have gone up. There's a perception that leads to higher quality, and in many cases, there's evidence that some of these things really do, right? It's more active learning, more interactive, formative feedback. This is all evidence-based good stuff. So how do we bring that into the OER world? That's our goal here. So our project is a little different from some of the others. And now we have this strong focus on developing rich active learning experiences at the heart of what we're doing. Everybody's doing that in certain ways, but this was like the real focus of ours. And to do that, creating open source technology infrastructure, new infrastructure that I'll talk about briefly, to enable authoring and delivery of these sort of active adaptive content experiences, essentially trying to bring this technology into the open not-for-profit world. Emphasizing essential skills. So what we found, we had a workforce advisory board. All the projects in our year were supposed to have a workforce advisory board, and we got strong pushback from them when we said, "Hey, should we develop around this topic or that topic or that topic?" And thinking about subject domain areas, we got pushback from them saying, "Look, the world doesn't need another chemistry course, no matter how good it might be. We need people who show up who have like essential workforce skills." Better developed than they do right now. So I'll talk about that a little bit later on here, but we kind of evolved our project, pivoted a little bit to focus on tools to enhance skill development more so than disciplinary content, actually. And then, of course, collaborating with partners, trying to develop a community of authors and empowered instructors, since the infrastructure is designed to enable that. So what is actually available, sort of to cut the chase, if you go to the website, the link will be at the end of this slide deck. What will you see there? You'll see broadly there's three things that we've done here. We've developed tools, interactive, subject agnostic experiences that enable skill development. I'll show you some examples in just a minute. Around those tools, we've developed content packages developed in collaboration with faculty, where we've taken best of breed existing OER resources and paired them with the tools and designed the tools with content in them that fits with those content packages. So these are disciplinary aligned content packages. And then beneath it all, embedding this all in an open source authoring and delivery platform that we've been developing. We've been investing in an effort that really started at the Open Learning Initiative at Carnegie Mellon University. So I'm going to go into all of that in more detail here. So first of all, these InSpark OER tools, when we say tools, what do you need? What do we mean? Well, we realized that what we were told, and then had this idea that we got a lot of positive reinforcement about, was that what would be great would be to develop OER tools to nurture skills needed for professional, academic, and vocational success. There's Department of Education literature that sort of speaks to this, that we were pleased to find after our Workforce Advisory Board told us that this is what we really ought to be doing. And so we developed a set of 4 tools. One is called Chart It. It's a tool to advance numeracy, reasoning, and communication skills. Educators can, and all of these tools are very customizable. So educators, for example, in Chart It can load up whatever data sets they want to build numeracy, reasoning, and communication activities in their class, whatever the class is. Review It is sort of a peer review tool. So it's a tool that enhances reading comprehension, critique, and communication skills once again. Plan It is a tool for teaching skills of organization and visualization and responsibility. And then Tour It is a virtual tour creator tool that enhances skills of creativity, sort of technical proficiency, because you need to get a little bit techie in order to use this. It's not too bad, but you need to understand different types of imagery and things like that. And then we've also used this a lot for cultural awareness, because it turns out that virtual trips can be used in all sorts of really interesting ways to give students the ability to relate in a kind of more visceral way than just reading text to cultural contexts that they may not be familiar with themselves from their own experience. So we put a lot of effort in developing these tools as openly available tools. They're mostly open source. 3 of the 4 are literally open source tools, but they're all openly available for education use and freely available for education use. So a key part of these tools is we want to decentralize content creation. So this is a little video here from the Turret tool, showing very rapidly here. We'd actually do this a little more slowly, showing the learner, sorry, in this case, the teacher, the educator, the faculty member, creating a virtual tour of a location that is important to them. And this is particularly imagery and information from a project we did with educators, Indigenous Hawaiian educators, to teach students about sacred places that are being before they're overrun by development, sacred in their culture. So this is not something that we know about. It's not something that we're going to create. We would ever create learning experiences around, but we put these tools in the hand of the educators who find it very important to preserve these spaces and communicate their value, and teach science actually in the context of these spaces. Some of that is what's been done here. It turns out this tool is very useful. So as you can see here, this is pretty user-friendly. The educator can bring their own panoramic images, which you can now take with a cell phone. We put a lot of effort into building this in a user-friendly way that makes it possible to configure hotspots, layer in other kind of media on top of these spherical images, panoramic images, to create an experience that really is an interactive sort of guided tour through a space. So this is a tool that's now freely available for use as part of this OER tool collection, and manifesting the spirit of trying to decentralize the content creation. So that's a quick look at the tools. The course content packages. So we take these tools and we have built essentially content packages that make use of existing best of breed OER in English composition, communication, student success, an introductory chemistry suite, and an introductory biology suite. We did this with our community college partners, with faculty from those institutions, and as kind of a demonstration in part for folks to see how you could take these tools and embed them into disciplinary content in different ways. So the charted tool in a chemistry course will be using a different data set than the charted tool in a biology course. But it's the same tool enabling the same skills, just in different contexts depending on the course. So that's the course content packages. And then the final thing that we're very excited about is the platform, right? So back with Smart Sparrow, the InSpark courseware that we built was intensely adaptive. Lots and lots of formative feedback and rich feedback around simulations. So a student does something in simulation, and the platform knows what the student did in the simulation and provides feedback. So what we've done with Taurus is the Open Learning Initiative at Carnegie Mellon University was embarking on developing an open source tool for doing this. And we took some of our Department of Education funds, as well as other funds that we had in our center, to bring certain capabilities to that platform that we felt were really important around especially simulation-based formative learning. And so this is an open source adaptive courseware platform that is led out of Carnegie Mellon University's Open Learning Initiative, but with heavy engagement from us here in the Center for Education through Exploration at ASU. So CMU, ASU, NASA, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and the Department of Education have co-invested in this in various ways. And when I distribute the link, there's a nice distribute the deck. There's a nice link here to an article about the launch of this platform. So this is just an example here. This is a PhET simulations. These are freely available simulations. So you may have seen these kind of simulations. But you see this next button. The things are wired up here so that the platform, the Taurus platform, knows what the student did in the simulation and can provide feedback to the student to tutor them through their misconceptions and get them to understand what the correct answer is and why. So this enabling of formative feedback, there's lots of evidence that this is very powerful and helpful. It has been the domain of proprietary for-profit platforms. So what we're doing is working very hard to bring all the richness of that and beyond now into the open source and hence low cost, easily distributed domain. Importantly, Taurus is designed it's designed by learning engineers, to advance learning science. And so there's not just the resources that are created in the platform. There's also a set of fairly simple to use authoring tools. So the idea here is that educators can create or adapt existing content. They can deploy that. They can analyze and see what works and why not. And then they can, based on that information, adapt again, and then continue and have a virtuous research-based, evidence-based loop to lead to ever more effective learning experiences. So Taurus is this platform. It's also a community, and a growing community that's rooted in this not-for-profit post-secondary education world. And it's a community of folks, engineers, scientists, and educators committed to continuously improving learning. Impact so far, so since you can see some numbers here, since 2021, Taurus itself, which just launched in 2021, has been used by about 50,000 students across about 90 campuses. The InSpark OER tools have been used by about 15,000 students so far at about 10 campuses. One of the lessons we learned is it's very hard to launch brand new technology in the teeth of a pandemic that has everybody scrambling for stuff that they know will work. So that was quite a challenge, but now that we're through all that, things are starting to go very nicely, and we're excited to share this with you. If you want to learn more, you can go to the inspark.education page to see the tools and look at examples and access them. You can email us, of course. And for more information on Taurus in particular, oli.cmu.edu/Taurus is the place to go to see the Taurus community and get plugged into that. And so with that, I will be happy to stop. And if there's any time left, maybe we can take some questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Ariel, Kim, and Kelsey. You all are fantastic, and I'm just so excited about all the great work you all are doing and the impact. Really, seeing how much impact you have across not only the nation but internationally is just it's so wonderful, and I'm so grateful for you all. I don't currently see any other questions in the chat, but please feel free if you have a question to quickly put it in the chat, because we would love to answer your questions. Although I do see tons of resources that were shared in the chat, which makes me very excited that you all will have access to those resources as well. And I do want to just mention that although with open textbooks, we currently have 19 grantees, as all of our current our 3 grantees here have shared. We are not just impacting 19 institutions. We are impacting hundreds of institutions domestically and internationally, and thousands of students, and saving our students millions of dollars collectively. So this is not just impacting those 19 institutions, it's impacting a lot of our institutions nationwide and internationally. So I did want to at least highlight that because I think that is incredibly important as a part of the work that we do with the Open Textbooks Grant. I do see that we had a question about the Taurus platform, and that was shared in the chat. If you all have any other questions, I know we only have a couple minutes. You can please feel free to reach out to our presenters or myself. We will be sharing all of these resources with you all so that you have access to them. But I just want to give a round of applause to our presenters today. If you don't mind using some of the reacts, just to thank them for all the work that they do and the information that they shared today. It's so important, and the work that they do, and I'm so grateful for all of them. I see lots of thank yous in the chat. Wonderful. Well, thank you all so much for your time today, and again, sharing this wonderful information. I do appreciate all of you, and so do our attendees. We will be sure to share all of these resources with you all after we make sure everything is accessible and 508 compliant, especially because that is an important part of the work that we do as Open Textbooks grantees. So we will be sure to get you all of that information and resources. Thank you all so much, and I hope you all have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.